One of the ones that's so yeah.
Are you with us?
I'm willing to stand by. Yeah. Yeah.
My wife's going to hold my breath just to.
Of SA Stance, and I'm very grateful to be with y'all here today. I'm going to kick it off with the message in Spanish first, and then we'll continue with the program. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Juani Torres y soy parte de la organización SA Stance aquí en San Antonio, Texas. Estamos presentes hoy para seguir alzando la voz y la atención sobre las injusticias y condiciones inhumanas por las que nuestra comunidad inmigrante está pasando. En esta conferencia de prensa escucharemos los comentarios de varios representantes locales y nacionales, incluyendo los de nuestro congresista Joaquin Castro, que acaba de visitar al centro de detenciones en Dili. Nuestra organización de SA Stance entiende y reconoce que la separación de familias y deportaciones de nuestra gente ha sido algo que ha estado pasando por años. Como comunidad, nosotros demandamos la liberación inmediata de no solo Liam Adrian Conejo Ramos y su padre, pero también de todos los inmigrantes detenidos injustamente en Dili y en centros de detenciones de todas partes. También demandamos que paren las deportaciones injustas y anticonstitucionales que están ocurriendo en nuestra comunidad por todo el país, que nuestro Congreso pare de financiar a los agentes de ICE y sus crímenes, y que de nuestro condado de Béjar siga financiando el fondo legal de recursos para migrantes que tenga representación legal justa en las cortes del condado de Béjar. Con esto voy a traer a mi compañera Aline Miranda para continuar en inglés.
Hi everyone, my name is Ali Miranda and I am a member of SA Stance. SA Stance is a coalition of organizations and individuals across San Antonio and Béjar County working to defend the rights, freedom, and safety of all immigrant communities. For over 7 years, across multiple administrations, this coalition has organized, mobilized, and demanded transparency, accountability, and justice. We're here today because what is happening right now, it's unacceptable and inhumane. ICE is targeting our communities at courthouses, in our neighborhoods, and even in our schools. On Tuesday, January 20th, Liam Adrian Conejo Ramos, a 5-year-old child, was taken by federal agents along with his father, Adrian Alexander Conejo Ramos, in their own driveway after Liam returned from school. Liam and his father were quickly transferred to the Dili Detention Center. Dili is one of the only family detention centers in the entire United States, and it's here in Texas, 1 hour from San Antonio. In addition to Dili, there are ICE facilities of Pearsall and Cairns, where community members are detained and separated from their families. Unfortunately, Liam is not the first child detained, and it's not the only one currently being held. For years, families have been detained in indeterminate periods of time, forced to live in unsanitary conditions with limited access to healthcare, unsafe water, and expired food. Today, these facilities are getting more attention, and we really hope that this helps to give visibility to the multiple violations happening at detention centers across Texas and the United States.
Right now, eyes are on the national spotlight, but we want to also bring the spotlight to Bexar County. Bexar County is one of the counties with the highest number of ICE detainers in Texas. San Antonio now ranks 9th in the country for the highest number of ICE arrests. Our city has also become one of the worst places in the nation for immigration courthouse arrests, with nearly 100 arrests in just 3 months, including 12 children. ICE Pearsall facility held the 5th highest number of immigrants so far in fiscal year 2026, averaging 1,732 per day. Our demands as SA Stance are the immediate release of Liam and his father and the reunification of all families impacted by immigration detention, an immediate end to family detention at Dili and all detention facilities, an immediate end to unlawful deportations. We demand all funds being sent to ICE for these heinous enforcement actions be ceased immediately. And we want the renewal of the Immigrant Legal Defense Fund here in Bexar County, so families have access to legal representation and due process. With this, I turn it over to Congressman Joaquin Castro.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joaquin Castro. I'm very proud to represent our hometown of San Antonio. And this afternoon, myself and Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman from Dallas, along with members of our staff, had a chance to go inspect the Dili Detention Center in Dili, Texas, and visit with Liam Ramos and his father, as well as hundreds of other detainees in that facility. Liam Ramos should be released immediately. I would first like to describe to you our meeting. We met with he and his father for about 30 minutes, how that meeting went. We sat in what was the courtroom. You can see from the picture that I posted that he was lying in his father's arms. His father said that Liam has been very depressed since he's been at Dili, that he hasn't been eating well. I was concerned with, you see how he appears in that photo with his energy. He seemed lethargic. His father said that Liam has been sleeping a lot, that he's been asking about his family, his mom, and his classmates, and saying that he wants to go be back in school with his classmates. He's asked about his backpack and his cap that he was wearing when they picked him up in Minnesota. I let him know that his school and his community, his family, and our country love him, and we're praying for him. I told them that we would do everything that we could to get him out of there. I demanded from ICE that they release him. I told them that most of America wants Liam released and that he should really be released immediately. But the sad tragedy of all of this is that Liam is emblematic of the inhumanity of our detention system and ICE operations. There are many other kids just like Liam who were in detention as well, and Jasmine and I met with many of them and their family. There's a 2-month-old baby who's been there for 4 or 5 days. There are kids under 5 years old. There are folks who are 8, 9, 10, up into the teenage years. There are folks who are mentally broken because of the trauma that they're experiencing in Dili. A few things to remember, first about Liam and his family. They came to the United States legally. They had permission to wait for their asylum case to be processed here through the CD1 app. When people talk about an orderly and efficient immigration system, they followed the rules. The second thing is that there are no criminals at Dili. Donald Trump talked about arresting, in his own words, criminal illegal aliens. You don't go to Dili, a facility that right now has 1,100 people in it, if you've committed a crime. All of those people suffering there and languishing there in that trauma, in that uncertainty, because ICE won't tell them sometimes when their next court date is. ICE won't tell them what's going to happen to them. None of those people has committed a crime. And so I would ask President Trump, who himself has grandkids who were of the age, I know, young, of some of the kids that we met with today, to think about what it would be like if his grandkids were behind bars or in this kind of prison. The trauma and the impact that it would have on them. And for Stephen Miller, who is a father himself with young kids, like myself, I have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 3.5-year-old. If you're going to be an architect of this kind of viciousness and brutality and inhumanity, then you should have the guts to go to these facilities like Dilley and sit face to face, eye to eye with these kids and tell them why you believe they belong there. I believe that we should disband ICE. I support the impeachment of Kristi Noem. And I don't believe the Senate or the House or Congress should give another dime to ICE in this appropriations bill. With that, I would like to introduce an incredible colleague of mine who represents part of the city of Dallas, who served in the Texas legislature before, just as I did. That's my colleague, Jasmine Crockett.
I just want to paint a picture. Imagine being a free-willed, loving kiddo, and all of a sudden one day you're thrown on a plane. You're sent 1,500 miles away from home, and you don't understand what's going on. All you know is that your friends are gone. You have one set of pants, one shirt. Your dad washes your pants and your shirt out every single day and then hangs it by a unit to try to dry it overnight. You don't have your mom, who is currently 4 months pregnant with your sibling. And frankly, at this point in time, you've gotten depressed to the extent that you've stopped eating. This is the story of Liam. The sad reality of what we found when we went to Dilley was that Liam was not the only one. You have so many mothers in this facility. They didn't care about themselves. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. They were concerned about their children. We heard the same story over and over and over about how they were depressed, about how they weren't eating, about how children were throwing up. We went into a housing facility because I don't know that they were really trying to take us into one, but we went, and there was an area that was almost set up like a kids' play area. And we walked in, and as soon as we walked in, everyone kind of flooded towards us. And at some point in time, it seems like they told us that they were actually educating these kids. And the kids were like, no, we're not in school. We're not getting anything. And so my staffer is like, what's up? Because y'all told us they were getting this. They reopened this facility that had been shuttered under the Biden-Harris administration. They reopened this facility back in April of last year. They continue to house children there, and they are not getting any education. Their education is being thwarted. And then when pressed about it, they said, well, we're working on it. And I said, well, what exactly are you doing? They said, well, we're going to get some packets in here. And I said, what are the packets going to do? Are you going to have teachers? Well, we have somebody that has an educational background. Listen, I did criminal defense work, y'all. I'm here to tell you that the treatment that these people are suffering under right now is worse than those that are accused and sometimes even convicted of crimes. That's how bad it is. So people wonder, like, why is it that people are outraged? Why is it that the people in Minneapolis have taken to the streets? Because they are kidnapping their neighbors. We know that Trump lied. We know that all he does is lie. Because the first thing I wanted to know was, how many criminal convictions do y'all have? How bad are these folks? Oh, no. You can't be here and have a record. Y'all, I can't tell you how many innocent, precious children we talk to. We talked to a 16-year-old, and one of my staffers says, man, the level of maturity on that kid. That kid had about 4 younger siblings and his mom. They had been there for 8 months. When we walked in, they gave us a packet, and it said the average detention time was 28 days. We didn't meet anybody who had been there for less than probably 2 months. This is not right. And when I asked the person that is over the attorneys that are there to represent the government, I asked them, I said, what is happening? You've been here long enough. You're a government employee. You've been here through various administrations. And frankly, he said, the difference is somehow they're trying to prosecute these cases while keeping people in custody. That is not what they normally would do. That is what this administration has decided to do. They have decided to play with people mentally. They have decided to tell people things like, well, you're not going to be able to see your kids if you do this, or we're not going to do this if you do that, or we're not going to give you your court dates. This is terrible what is happening. And I really don't know what it's going to take for there to be a wake-up call in this country, but I am here to tell you that we are supposed to be better than this. We talk to people that are saying, you know what, I'm from Cuba, as one woman said, and she was crying profusely saying, and they are sending me to Ecuador. What are we doing? So I'm here standing with my colleague because no, we won't fund this nonsense. We both voted no on that bill. We are asking our colleagues in the Senate to do their part. Stand up for people. Stand up and show them what humanity looks like. We know this administration doesn't care about us, but frankly, when people literally are talking about the water that they are drinking is not safe, if you allow this to continue to happen, then you are complicit. We have to do our part as the legislative branch. We have the power of the purse, not the president. It is time for us to flex our power. So thank you so much for being here. I am now going to turn it over to my colleague who leads up the Congressional Progressive Caucus and is representing a portion of San Antonio as well as Austin. Greg Casar.
Thank you, Congresswoman, and thank you so much for being down here and visiting Dili. And of course, thank you to my colleague, Congressman Castro. I'm Greg Casar. I'm proud to represent the ground we stand on in San Antonio as long as they'll let me. Quiero que la gente aquí en San Antonio sepa que estamos aquí luchando para la liberación de Liam Ramos. Estamos aquí luchando para sacar a ICE de nuestras calles, de nuestras cortes, y diciéndole a nuestro gobierno que queremos que el gobierno federal se enfoque en nuestra seguridad y bienestar, no en separar a nuestras familias. Estamos aquí para liberar a Liam Ramos. Punto y fin. Today we say with one voice, free Liam Ramos. Free Liam Ramos. Donald Trump ran for the presidency, saying he was going to go after, quote, the worst of the worst. Today, he is holding a 5-year-old in a prison. Last year, they arrested 3,800 minors. You've seen the picture. A small child, Spider-Man backpack, scared and alone, used as bait by federal agents. Whatever your politics, I'd ask you to stop for a moment and imagine that that's your child, your little boy or little girl. That should break the heart of every American. This does not make anyone safer, and it makes us all less free. So the question before us is, what do we do? What do we do? And there's a lot that we can do. Share these stories. Talk to everyone you know about how what the president is saying is a lie. You've seen it before your very eyes. Liam is not the only young person who's had his life destroyed or turned upside down by chaos and cruelty of Trump's deportation policies. At Liam's school alone, at least 3 other kids have been taken away by ICE. Kids. Here in Texas, I know of a U.S. citizen child with a brain tumor who was deported away from her doctors here, and she has not been allowed to return. I'm in touch with the family of Ani Lopez Bellosa, a college student here from Texas, who was deported, and the Trump administration said that they deported her by mistake. They haven't let her come back. We cannot rest until Liam Ramos is released, until these families are brought back home, and of course, until we have justice for Renee Good, Alex Preddy, and everyone else that has faced these devastating devastating policies. The chaos has to end and the cruelty has to end. Something else we have to do is to get organized, know our rights, and speak up and demand immediate change in Washington, D.C. We can't just wait until the next election. That's why earlier this month, alongside Congresswoman Crockett and Congressman Castro, I voted against sending any more money to ICE. And now we need Senate Democrats to stand strong and demand an immediate end to these mass deportation policies that put us here in the first place. The Senate must demand that ICE stop invading our cities, take the masks off and put badges on. They have to stop detaining and deporting innocent people like Liam and his family. We need them to get out of our courthouses like they are here in Bexar County. Stop the warrantless arrests, and we must impeach the people responsible.
Yes.
Christy Noem and Stephen Miller have to go yesterday. And I want to remind folks watching at home and the folks here that there has to be a better world after this. And one thing that we haven't talked enough about, that we need to remember, is that when there is a new president in the White House, we can't leave communities behind like those in San Antonio ever again. We have to make front and center, top priority, passing finally comprehensive immigration reform so that the millions of people like Liam and his family have some fairness, and so that no president can ever do again what Donald Trump has done to Liam and so many other families here in Bexar County. Thank you guys very much. And I'm passing it along to somebody, but their name is hiding under my folder. Dear colleague and friend, I'm proud to call up State Representative Gina Hinojosa.
I'm State Representative Gina Hinojosa. I'm also running to be the next governor of Texas. And I want to thank everybody who is here today to highlight and put attention on what is happening, because what we know is that there is an effort to censor the criticism, the negativity, the truth that is happening with these ICE raids, that is happening with these children who are being taken. We experienced it ourselves. We tried posting it on social media, on TikTok. We were shadow banned from posting criticism of ICE. That's why it is so important we're here to speak out. First, I want to speak to the fear that people are experiencing back home. The fear is real. People are scared. Americans are scared because we have all witnessed with our own eyes the brutality, the violence, and even the killings at the hand of a lawless government. We mourn even the killings of Americans. We see the fear in the eyes of children snatched from their families, treated like hardened criminals. And we know that many of these families are American families that are being targeted. Because for many of us, we come from mixed status families. That is my own experience, in fact. And we know that people are being targeted in these ICE raids because of the color of their skin, because of the language they are caught speaking, because of the music that they are caught listening to. Let me tell you that I was born and raised in the Rio Grande Valley. We are proud there of our Hispanic heritage, and we are deeply patriotic and equally proud of being Americans. So when we are targeted by the government as not being American enough, it is deeply hurtful. We are just as American, just as Texan as anybody, and we deserve and we should be respected with the same rights as everybody else. We should all be asking, why is this happening? There is a saying that's gotten popular, the cruelty is the point. I don't believe that anymore. What I think is happening is the cruelty is the the mask to hide the corruption that is driving this system. See, last year, these private prisons started getting these contracts to hold people taken by ICE. Now they're all going to private prisons. These places are operated by private prisons. There are really only two in the whole country. One is Geo Group, one is CoreCivic. CoreCivic is the largest owner of real estate, private real estate, that the government uses. Their biggest investor is BlackRock, a multinational corporation that is in the business of maximizing profits for its shareholders. Those profits, by the way, are 100% paid by the taxpayer. Geo Group is the other private prison company that also has the same for-profit model that it operates under. It also happens to have given tens of thousands of dollars to Governor Greg Abbott right before he decided to license these family detention centers, which is why we have families in here and children incarcerated in Texas, and it's not happening anywhere else. That is the corrupt reality that we live in Texas and in America. People ask all the time, what can I do? What do we do? The answer is that you are already doing it. We are already doing it. By refusing to believe the lies coming from a lawless government, by refusing to stay silent, by refusing to stay home even when it is scary and the fear is real. We are making a difference. Change is happening. We are winning back sanity and humanity in this country. The courageousness we are witnessing in Minnesota and Texas and all over this country, that is the way forward. It is working. Don't stop. Because what we know is though government is broken, the people are not. Though the government has fallen to authoritarianism, the people are free. And the people are fighting back. And that's the way the people will win. Thank you. Next, I'd like to call up my colleague, Trey Martinez Fisher, who is the Dean of the San Antonio House Delegation. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Good afternoon. I'm Trey Martinez Fisher. You've heard these speakers, and let's review where we're at. In the last 48 hours, Senator Ted Cruz told the president, you're losing the narrative on immigration, change up the language, we're losing credibility. We have a governor of this state who has now said we need to recalibrate the tactics of Minnesota, which I think is rich, coming from a governor who put barbed wire on the border, buoys in the water, and now oversees a police force that is shooting tear gas into crowds of peaceful protesters, many of them from a church. But I can tell the president I am not an expert, but I can guarantee you to change your strategy of detaining 5-year-olds and putting them behind harsh and cruel conditions is not a winning strategy either. And it is up to us, all of us, because we know where Dilley is, and we know that every migrant who comes through on their way to Dilley passes our community. We know about Liam coming through San Antonio. We know about young Genesis, a 5-year-old girl who was picked up in Austin, stayed in a San Antonio hotel before she went to Dilley. And so that puts all of us on alert. And for San Antonians, this is not the fight we have asked for, but this is the fight that we need to finish. And we have a very rich history, and we have credibility in being in these spaces and standing up for our community. Let me remind you that Texas has the largest African American population in the country. We have one of the largest Latino populations in the country. And when we needed a state observed holiday for MLK, San Antonio civil rights leaders organized that in Austin. When Latinos felt like they needed a helping hand, the founding of LULAC, the founding of MALDEF, the founding of the American GI Forum has deep roots in this community. Folks, this is who we are. And it is our job to double down, to have Liam's back, to have Genesis's back, to give the support to our federal representatives, to send them empowered to deliver a strong message, not only to the Trump administration, but for those members of the US Senate that now have the power. And we're all in politics and we know the game, and we know that there's always a outside message and an inside strategy. We let folks know that we know about that and we know how to count. And the only way, Mr. President, that we are going to bring change to this country is we need to crush some ice. Yeah! Right? And we will do that dollar by dollar, appropriation bill by appropriation bill. I've been very proud to serve with many men and women here who have left the state in hopes of rallying the nation so that we can do things differently. Congresswoman Crockett knows she and I camped out Senator Manchin's office for a good bit to talk to him about changing the rules on the filibuster. We want our members of Congress to let our senators know that we are watching, America is watching, Liam is watching, Genesis is watching, and we are not going to stop and we're not going to quit until we bring justice to those families, until we change the tone and the tenor and the scope of this conversation to recognize what someone told me this morning. We're all God's people. We're all God's children. And we have to treat each other like the least among us. And that begins with those families and those children in the Dilley Detention Center. And so, San Antonio, it's our job. Let's step it up. I now want to bring up my colleague. This is the district that we are in, and is represented by Representative Diego Bernal.
Thank you. I know it's getting long, but we're trying to think of something to say that hasn't already been said. So let me give you a couple. First,
ice melts in Texas.
Ice melts in Texas. First, I want to thank all of the people who are behind me for their presence and for their courage, and especially Congressman Castro for leading this nationwide. This is not an easy job, and being the father of a young child myself, I know it is an impossible task to keep a straight face and not be angry and to stay composed. That is almost impossible. And so I want to direct some of that anger not just towards Trump, who is not a king, barely a president, but also to one of his biggest accomplices, and that is Governor Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott wants nothing more than to get an attaboy and a pat on the head from Donald Trump. And in fact, the world we're living in now is something that Abbott has aspired to for a long time. Some of my colleagues may remember SB4, the original Show Me Your Papers bill that would allow local law enforcement on site to check people's immigration status. And remember, during that debate, we offered amendments that said you shouldn't be able to go into a school to do this. They voted it down. You shouldn't be able to go into a church to do this, and they voted it down. You shouldn't be able to go into a domestic violence shelter, and they voted it down. This is what they want, and they finally got it. You know, what's really interesting to me is that, and follow this if you can, Greg Abbott opposes red flag laws. And he says so because he's concerned about the due process rights of the gun owner. And yet, he has no concern for the lack of due process of Liam and everyone else there. On top of that,
How do you feel about your president raping 12-year-olds?
all right, so release Liam release the families, release these political prisoners, and my boy, release the Epstein files. Thank you very much. All right. And up next is our state senator, Jose Menendez.
So, for the Spanish media, let me explain a little bit of what we will do, a little recap. Para los medios españoles, habla español, yo soy José Menéndez, senador estatal, Distrito 26, hijo de inmigrantes. And just like it's been said, como se ha dicho, estas personas que tienen arrestados son gente que llegaron aquí legalmente, entraron legalmente. Este señor no sabe ni lo que habla. These are people who came through the system legally. We are talking about people, children and women, who are being detained without their human rights and their civil rights. We're not talking about anybody that has any kind of criminal complaint whatsoever. No hay ni un criminal, cero, en Dili, ni en Pearsall, ni en Carnes, cero. Son gente, niños, familias, señoras que no tienen a sus familias. Esto es un abuso de los derechos civiles y humanos de estas personas. Y por eso, los latinos, todos que escuchen esto, tienen que salir. No podemos temerles. Ellos lo que quieren es que nos escondamos. They want you to hide. They don't want you to come out. They want you to cower. This is all a part of what their whole activity. The fear, and for me, yes, is part of the mass, but the fear is how to control the masses. That's why being out here is already winning. Today, this morning, myself and many of my colleagues sent a letter to Governor Abbott asking for the immediate cessation of any cooperation with ICE in Texas. Period, the end. These people, whether it's Trump, whether it's Miller, whether it's that lady that's unqualified, these people want you not to believe your own eyes and ears. You've got to understand that you cannot allow them to get away with a narrative that they don't even understand. That's a part of it. They fool these poor people into believing things that aren't the real reality. So, anyway, I'm going to introduce now a letter from a child at the Dilley Detention Center that's going to be read by Eric Lee, a partner at Lee Goldsall. Eric, come on up.
This is a letter that a 5-year-old, this is a
Keep going, keep going.
This is a photo a drawing that a 5-year-old girl made. She gave it to me yesterday. I represent a family of 6. Their name is El Gamal. The family includes a mother, Hayam, an 18-year-old Habiba Soliman, 2 5-year-old twins, a 9-year-old girl, and a 16-year-old. They have been at Dilley for 8 months, not because of anything that they did, but because of the crime that somebody else committed. They have suffered from deprivation of medical attention in their 8 months, and on Saturday, as a result of the 18-year-old's decision to speak out to the press, ICE separated her from her family, brought her to a different part of the facility, denied her religious accommodations, and has been denying her visitation rights every single day since then. That's in retribution for having spoken out against the conditions that they are confronting every day in Dilley. I'm going to read from a letter that she has written that hasn't been reported on yet. I'll just read a couple of paragraphs and then I'll make this available to whoever would like to report on it. This is from Habiba Soliman. Why is this happening to us? Why would all of our efforts to achieve our dreams be in vain? Why would the government insist on detaining us with no evidence? Why is it taking so long for the truth to come out? Those are the questions that we have been trying to find an answer to for these last 8 months, but we have unfortunately failed. The family's bond was denied last week by an immigration judge, in part because insufficient assets and insufficient property. The judge made that decision for each child individually. What kind of property does a 5-year-old need to have to be deemed not a flight risk to get out on bond? How many toys? How many pieces of candy? And that's the immigration system. Habiba continues. 2 days after the bond was denied, I was separated from my family, as if what we had been through wasn't enough. I will never forget the look of fear and helplessness on my mother's face as she watched me being taken away and couldn't do anything to prevent it. After we heard the immigration judge's decision, and after we realized that we will be detained for who knows how long, our strength and will hit the rock bottom. Just as we were trying to process everything, we were separated. And at that moment, everything that we had left was completely shattered. I urge everyone to look at the evidence of our innocence to see how unfairly we have been treated by this government. However, we are still hoping that the process will play out well in the end. We still have full belief in the justice system. We know that the truth will come out soon. Me and my family dream of the day that we will get out. Ramadan is coming and we will be fasting. I can't even imagine spending it in a detention facility, let alone away from my family. When will our punishment end? When will we be free? No family should ever be separated or have to stay detained for months. So to conclude, we, in addition to calling for the release of the young boy from Minneapolis, I urge everybody to follow the case of the El Gamal family and their 5 children, including the twins who have been detained for up to about 20% of their lives. Thank you very much. And next is Tori Salas.